Yes, I know. It feels good to recycle. But what if it isn't real? What if recycling is one of the biggest scams ever perpetrated on humanity? Let's find out. Plastic bottles, aluminum cans, paper, glass, all are endlessly recycled. Except they aren't. We are all being lied to. Most of it ends up in landfills or shipped overseas to places like Malaysia, where it's dumped in massive piles and set on fire. This 2019 National Geographic article, The World's Plastic Problem in 600 Seconds, states that most plastic can be recycled over and over infinitely. But that's not true. According to how it works, only certain types of plastic are accepted for recycling: PET, HDPE, PVC, LDPE, and PP. Most plastics simply cannot be recycled. They have to be thrown away. Don't believe me? Well, how about this? A recent study by the Center for Climate Integrity revealed that only 5% of plastic waste collected in the US is actually recycled. The rest ends up in landfills or incinerated or shipped to developing countries or all of the above. Okay, so what about cardboard and metals and glass? Isn't that stuff recycled? Well, yes, but somebody gets paid. If you throw it in the recycling bin without getting cash back, who did? Somebody gets paid when you put metal, glass, or cardboard into your recycling bin. In addition, the company that owns that recycling plant will receive payments from the government based on the weight of the recyclables delivered to them. Paper must be at least 75% pure for the MRF to pay anything for it. This is called a material recovery facility. Glass must be free of plastic, metal, paper, and other contaminants. Metals must be sorted by type and free of any non-metallic materials. Plastics also need to be clean, dry, and sorted by type again. That sorting takes time, effort, and money. And all that extra processing uses up resources too. In the end, the environmental cost of managing it all might actually outweigh the small benefits from the few plastics that do get recycled. So when you put a dirty pizza box or glass jar with food residue in the recycling bin, it often gets tossed out along with everything else. These facilities do not accept food-contaminated items, which accounts for a lot of contamination. The cost of hauling it there only to be thrown away again means the environmental impact of the transportation is added on as well. So let's talk about e-waste. E-waste is toxic. You know that. The EPA estimates that each year Americans throw out about 3.4 million tons of e-waste. Cell phones, computers, TVs, other electronics. The EPA also says that almost half of the toxins in an e-waste landfill leach into groundwater within 2 years. So what happens to all that toxic waste? Well, according to an investigation by Motherboard, much of America's e-waste is sent to China where it gets burned. China doesn't care about the toxic chemicals that are released into the air or groundwater. According to estimates by Greenpeace, burning plasticized circuit boards releases polychlorinated dibenzo-p-dioxins and furans, otherwise known as PCDD and PCDF. The burning of circuit boards releases dioxins, polychlorinated biphenyls, and other toxic substances. Burning PVC cables releases hydrochloric acid and other dangerous toxins. These substances cause cancer, affect reproduction, damage the nervous system, and impair the immune system. Even if you don't count the shipping costs, which is a lot, it's a lie intended to cover up the massive environmental damage done by industries like the oil industry. It turns out it's better to throw away your e-waste than send it to China to be burned. The impact on the environment is still not zero, but it's far less. Now I'm going to make a bold statement. Almost everything you've been told about recycling is a lie. Did you know that the oil industry created plastic? Yes, they did. And once we realized its impact on the environment, they turned around and convinced us that we could recycle it. Only problem is most of it can't be recycled. It's a scam. I know it sounds unbelievable, But the oil companies knew it from the beginning. A recent report by the Center for Climate Integrity showed that oil companies knew, even back then, that plastic would end up in landfills. The oil industry has been lying to us about many things. The American Chemistry Council, a trade group funded by the oil industry, began a massive campaign in the 1980s to convince consumers that plastic could be recycled, despite knowing it wasn't true. They knew it wasn't true. They lied about fossil fuels causing climate change. And it's not just plastic. The oil industry helped create the Plastics Industry Association in 1943, promising a future made of plastic. Plastics would replace trees for paper, steel and tin for cans, rubber for tires, glass for bottles. They lied about plastics being recyclable. They knew it wasn't true. They lied about plastic being environmentally friendly. Why? Because oil companies have known since the 1960s that fossil fuels were causing global warming. They knew it wasn't true, but they've been lying to us ever since. Now, why would the oil industry want to take responsibility for the environmental damage caused by fossil fuels? Well, it's simple. Oil companies make money. We all know that. The more oil companies pollute, the more they have to clean up. And there's the rub. Cleaning up pollution is expensive. In 2020, ExxonMobil had to pay a record $4.5 billion to settle claims that they had misled investors about their climate risks. BP had to pay $20 billion to settle claims about the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Imagine if BP and Exxon didn't have to pay up. Wouldn't it be cheaper for them to just keep on polluting? Now, while the health impacts of big oil are well documented, recent studies have uncovered the effects of microplastics on the human body. Microplastics are everywhere. A study published in 2022 discovered microplastics in the placenta of pregnant women. Another study published the same year discovered microplastics in human milk. One study found over 12,000 plastic particles in 1 liter of bottled water. Another study found that those same brands of bottled water contained up to 9 and 11 trillion particles of microplastics. A study published in 2023 found microplastics in the brains of people who died with dementia. A study published the same year found that exposure to plastics disrupted hormones in lab mice. Studies have shown that microplastics contributed to strokes and heart attacks. One recent study found microplastics in bottled water, tap water, milk, beer, wine, salt, and even baby formula. Numerous studies have shown that microplastics disrupt our hormones, induce oxidative stress, and cause DNA damage. There are many other negative health effects from neurobehavioral disorders to liver disease to thyroid dysfunction. Some scientists think there may be many more effects we haven't discovered yet. This is another reason why the recycling scam is so insidious. Most of the plastic that isn't incinerated is eventually burned. Incinerators burn 90% of the plastic waste, releasing an estimated 900 billion pounds of poisonous gases and solid matter into the atmosphere every year. These materials include chlorine, mercury, lead, arsenic, cadmium, dioxins, and ash. Toxic pollutants remain in the ash and are often placed in landfills. As discarded electronic devices continue to pile up, their toxic components leach into the ground and poison wildlife and the people living nearby. Instead of throwing away our trash, we could be using it to create new products. I know this might seem like a huge problem without any solutions, but it doesn't have to be. We have the technology to fix these problems. For example, pyrolysis. Pyrolysis is a process of breaking down waste using heat in the absence of oxygen. Pyrolysis converts plastic into reusable products like oil and gas. Electro-waste can be broken down into valuable metals and nonmetals. Gasification converts waste into a synthetic gas called syngas, which can be used to generate electricity or convert it into liquid fuels. There are many other technologies we could be using. Instead of spending trillions of dollars to clean up oil spills, we could be taxing the oil companies for the pollution they create. We know the solutions. We just need the will to implement them. But there's one thing we can all do right now. Stop falling for the lies. Stop recycling. That's right. Stop recycling. Seriously. Whoever is trying to convince you otherwise is either lying to you, or they fell for the lies too and don't know any better. Unfortunately, fear-mongering works both ways. The fear of missing out on saving the planet, or the fear of being vilified as a polluter, keeps people trapped in the recycling mentality. But here's the hard truth. Throwing things away is a huge problem. But anyone who is desperately trying to convince you that recycling is the solution is doing you a disservice. The best way to help the planet is to stop falling for the lies. Thanks for watching.